Why are you not doing better than you currently are? We're going to look at one key area holding you back in this video. William Shakespeare said, "There is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so." We have a constant stream of ideas flowing to us. And the big difference is which ideas we pick up and which ideas we put down. This is all an inside job. If it wasn't, if we had the same situations, the same circumstances, we'd all have the same feelings and the same output. But it isn't that way. Let's take, for example, someone goes to Starbucks. And in Starbucks, there's a bunch of people in there. One person in there is drinking coffee, and they're excited that their NFL team won the day before, and so they're feeling good. Another person is also drinking coffee, but she is upset because her relationship is in a lot of stress and struggle, and she's contemplating all those ideas. A third person is also drinking coffee, but this time they're trying a new flavor and they're just savoring that new flavor and really enjoying it. In this example, these three people are all in the same place drinking the same coffee, but they're having radically different experiences. And why is that? It's as simple as which ideas are they picking up on the stream of consciousness? There's all these thoughts like the stock market coming at us, and which ones are we going to pick up and play with, and which ones are we going to let pass? Which ones are we going to pick up and say, ooh, I don't want that one, set that one down? That is the big difference between these three people who are drinking their coffee. In the physical world, when we experience something that is negative or harmful, we know what to do. We get out of there. For example, if something is poisonous, toxic, or harmful, we don't want to mess around. We just get out of there. If I asked you, hey, there's a whole bunch of poisonous snakes behind this door over here, do you want to go in there? Well, unless you're really a bizarre person, most people would say no. If I said there's a bunch of toxic gas outside, do you want to go outside and breathe that in? Let's take a walk and take a run. No, you'd want to get away from that. Or if I said, hey, there's some radiation, let's go take a trip back in time, if we could, to Chernobyl when they had that radiation meltdown. Let's go take a trip there. Most of us would say, no, we don't want to have anything to do with that. We would just immediately get away from it. But for some reason, when it comes to the mental world, we seem to throw all that logic out. And if there's a poisonous idea, a toxic thought, a harmful concept, we just want to hang around and embrace that. We want to play with those ideas. We want to just be all in it. And why is that? First, we're wired to see potential threats and problems and focus on those. That's part of our survival and our history that helped us get to this point. But what got us here won't get us where we want to go. Second, even though this hasn't worked for us, we think that if we contemplate these ideas, ruminate over them, somehow we will solve them. Even though if we look at our past, there's a lot of things that we have ruminated over, worried about, thought about, and we did not solve it, but we spent a lot of energy and time focusing on it. The third is the negativity bias. We have a tendency to skew our life and view it more towards negativity. We weigh that more importantly than positivity. Now, if I asked you if you won $1,000 or if someone stole $1,000 from you, which one would have a stronger emotion? Most of us would say someone stealing $1,000 from us would be more painful. We remember that 10 years from now. Versus winning, that might kind of fade into our mind. So that negativity bias is a huge factor. And number 4, we are creatures of habits, and that certainly goes with our thinking. We tend to think about the same things over and over. The 5th reason is the meaning we give it. We give everything a meaning and we create a story, just boom, just like that. So when something happens, we see it and we think, okay, I can change this, I can fix it, I can do this. This is something that needs my attention, And that's the story that we tell ourselves, and then that draws us into it, and we get sucked into this vortex. Those are reasons why we do it, but why don't we stop doing it? The first reason is it's difficult to stop this and switch it. Just simply, that's just the way we're wired. It's difficult for us to set that down. And the second challenge for us is that when we have a thought that we don't want, what one of our main mechanisms to do is to try to suppress it. And when you try to suppress or not think about something, what it actually does is it makes it stronger and more powerful in your mind. So if I told you under no circumstances think about a cat, you're probably going to have all kinds of images of cats in your mind, even though I'm telling you, do not think about a cat. So the more you try to suppress something, sometimes inadvertently, it just becomes stronger. Third, you're emotionally invested in something. When you have put a lot of time, effort, and energy into something, it's hard to just walk away from it, even if that is not serving you, even if it's negative, even if it's limiting you. There's this thought where if it's something like investing, if someone has bought a house and it's a money pit, instead of walking away or changing it, they just double down and put more and more money into that. And that's the same kind of thing here on this. When you feel emotionally attached to something, instead of breaking away, setting aside, you double down, you go into it more, and you contemplate all those ideas, let them ruminate in your head, and then you actually feel worse, which isn't the result you want, but that is the outcome. Fifth, you develop some coping strategies to help you deal with this. And coping strategies can help you in the short term, but in the long term, what they're doing is they are creating habits and ways of you dealing with things that are not the most effective for you. So if you have something that's really bothering you, rather than dealing with it or letting it go or whatever the solution might be for that, you have the habit and the practice of ruminating over it. And the sixth reason is you don't realize how damaging this is. If you truly knew how damaging these negative thoughts were that are swirling in your mind, that you're putting all this energy, time, and effort into, if you realized how damaging they were, you would stop them immediately. Just like when I talked about earlier, if you knew there was poisonous snakes or toxic gas, those types of things, you would get away from it immediately. But we are so familiar with this, we're so comfortable with this, and we just think it's normal, but it's not. All right, at this point you might be saying, okay, boy, I realize the importance of this. I realize how difficult it is. Are there any solutions? And yes, there are. I'm going to go over two. One, I'm going to explain it, and the second one, I'm going to give you a story, and then you can get the message out of that. The first one is setting up time to have worrying. So you set up worrying time. Now, I know that might sound crazy, but the fact that you say, okay, every Saturday morning from 9 to 10, or you just pick a day of the week and the time, you say, this is going to be my worrying time. That's when I'm going to put anything that I want to worry about, I'm going to do it during that hour or half hour or however long you want to make it. Now, what it does is two things. One, it gives you the opportunity when something comes up in your mind, you can say, okay, that's not part of my worrying time. I'm going to put that on my schedule, put that on the worrying schedule. And so then you can let it go and know, okay, I'm not just blowing this off, I'm doing that. The other thing you can do is you realize that worrying is not really going to be that beneficial. Because if you worry about something outside your control, do you have any influence on that if it's outside your control? No. And if you're worrying about something inside your control, does worrying about it help it at all? No. What you need to do is take action on it. But the simple fact of setting a time to have worrying, what it does is it allows you to say, okay, I'm not going to blow this off, I'm not going to ignore it, I'm going to set it over there. And then what you start realizing is that if it's in your control, you got to take action and do something. If it's not in your control, it's not in your control, and there's no benefit to worrying about it. Next, I'm going to read you a story that you're only going to find here because the story was just created, but it has a solution in it that if you apply the solution, it's one I really love. So let's get right to the story. In an ancient village, there lived a wise woman named Amara who was known for her tranquility and wisdom. One day, a young villager named Kai came to her, deeply troubled. Amara, Kai said, I cannot find peace. There is a thought that haunts me day and night. I am convinced that my friend, whom I trusted, has betrayed me. Amara invited Kai to sit by the river with her. Tell me more, she said gently. Kai explained how his friend had once spoken to someone they both knew, and ever since that day, he believed they were plotting against him. I cannot prove it, Kai admitted, but the thought consumes me. It brings me anger and sadness. Amara nodded, listening intently. And how does this thought serve you, Kai? What has it brought into your life? It has brought me nothing but pain and sleepless nights, Kai confessed. I feel trapped by my own mind. Amara looked at the flowing river. Do you see how the river flows freely, Kai? It does not hold on to any branch or stone that falls into it. It simply lets them pass, continuing its journey. Kai frowned. But what if this thought is true? What if my friend truly has betrayed me? Amara smiled kindly. What if it is true, and what if it isn't? The truth is, holding onto the thought and letting it consume you brings you only suffering. Whether true or not, the power it holds over you is in your hands. Kai stared at the river, reflecting on the words. How can I let go of such a thought, Amara? It feels so real, so consuming. Imagine your mind as a river, Amara explained. When a troubling thought enters, acknowledge it, but do not cling to it. Let it flow through you, as the river does with all its encounters. The thought may visit, but it does not have to stay. Kai closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He visualized his troubling thought as a leaf floating on the river, drifting away with the current. But what if it returns, he asked. It may return, Amara said, but each time it does, practice letting it go. Over time, you will find that its visits become less frequent and less powerful. Peace comes not from the absence of thought, but from the freedom to let them pass without attachment. Kai opened his eyes, feeling a sense of lightness he hadn't felt in weeks. He thanked Amara and promised to practice letting go of thoughts that did not serve him. As he walked away, Kai realized that true freedom lay not in controlling his thoughts, but in not allowing them to control him. He began to see his mind as a flowing river, capable of letting go of any leaf that disturbed its peace. Whenever a villager came to Amara with a troubled mind, she would share the story of the river and the leaf, teaching them the art of letting go. I might be a little biased, but I really love that story. The point in there is that you just have to let things go, like that leaf letting it go down the river. And this is a great way to visualize this. If you can see thoughts, like we were talking about in the beginning, all these thoughts are coming at you all the time. And if you can see them like a leaf, and is that a leaf I want to pick up? Is that a thought I want to eat, play with, or do I want to just let it go? It will really help you, because you cannot be stressed out unless you're holding stressful thoughts. You can't be anxious unless you're holding anxious thoughts. And all these thoughts are there, and we have all these to choose from. So if it's not something that's serving you, let it go. Think about this like the leaf going down the river. Visualize that. I think you'll find that very helpful. Also, I want to let you know that if you like this, there are 3 other videos I have that are very supportive and strengthening on this. There are videos from the past. The first one is what you need to let go of. And that is a story about a raft. And there's another one about an empty boat, and that's about monks and empty boats, so check that one out. And then the third one, this one is from a long time ago, about 4 years ago from the time of this recording, and that's 2 arrows. And again, all those are supporting these ideas here. And if you can learn to do that, it's a game changer. If you got some value out of this video, please hit like and subscribe. Peace comes not from the absence of thoughts, but from the freedom to let them flow without attachment.